Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this episode, Aaron Gerke and Kevin Bender are talking about Ephesians chapter 6, especially about spiritual warfare and how God has given us his armor. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Cheers.
Cheers, dude.
I think, was it last week you were rocking the Yeti? This week I'm rocking the Yeti.
Gotta keep it
I don't know.
unexpected.
Our beverage drinking vessels options are vast.
They are.
I think I have too many water bottles and coffee mugs and travel coffee mugs and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, that way you're never without. Except when I am. Sometimes I'm like this with pens too. Like I buy pens and then I have all the pens on my desk and then eventually all my pens are gone. And then I'll walk around the church and then my house and my car and I'm like, oh, there's one of my pens. And I gather them back together and then they just start to disappear again.
That's how I am with chapstick.
Oh.
Except the only place I have to look is usually the washing machine or the dryer.
Yeah, if it gets through the dryer. Does chapstick last the dryer?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it melts. It gets all goopy.
Have you found that out?
I don't want to think about it.
I found that out with pens.
Oh, yeah? Oh, that'll ruin a shirt.
It was really bad.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But, hey, that's enough about my personal life. I don't know about yours. Hey, well, those of you listening today, we're going to engage in a conversation about Ephesians chapter 6. We're kind of just, for now, sticking with in this podcast, the themes that we've been preaching through. And so I just got done preaching about Ephesians chapter 6, not the whole thing. There's some stuff at the beginning, but really kind of laid the emphasis on this, the armor of God and spiritual warfare. So I don't know, what were you hearing? You got to listen to me preach 3 times.
I did, yeah. Yeah, I think what sticks out to me quite a bit, which you acknowledged like early on kind of in the sermon, was just this question of, are you aware? Like, are you conscious of this spiritual realm and of these attacks, that Satan is working and doing? Like, is that something that's even on your radar? Because I think a lot of times, no.
Yeah. Are you answering for yourself or people in general?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's just my assessment for my own life, but something I've really tried to be attentive to, because I try to be an observer of the world in which I live. Like, I'm not super quick to just get all hyped up about a worldly issue. Like, cause I don't know, it's some of the same stuff that I think we've been talking about, that there's a greater perspective in Christianity. We have a greater hope. We believe in God's got stuff in control. And so I try to just take an observational role a lot of times. And I don't know, at least in this, especially in this last couple of months of our culture and our societies wrestle with, from the pandemic to the elections to racial inequality. I mean, those seem to be some of the big things from this year that we've been dealing with. And I just see so many people just caught up in those issues. And the damage it's doing between relationships and households and the society. And from a spiritual realm, you go, wow, yeah, the devil is capitalizing on a lot of that, and how is he doing it? And that's kind of what I got through in my sermon, as we talk about this, the game plan of the devil, as he's sowing seeds of doubt and division and chaos and confusion. And you just go, I think if you just take a step back and you go, oh, wow, yeah, that's what he's doing. Huh. and then you can laugh about it because you go, wait a second. You lose. Like, you're a loser, Satan. Like, and I'm not a name calling kind of person. Like, I don't like boasting. We talk about humility, but Paul encourages, if we're going to boast, like, boast in the Lord. Like, so I don't know if it's totally right, but I get a little bit of kick out of being able to call the devil a loser and know that that's true and kind of good to do because we can boast in the Lord. So I don't know if I'm pushing the envelope a little bit too much, but I get to get out all of those things that sometimes I want to say to other people, and I can just say it to the devil instead.
Well, exactly. And this is, that's what I thought was something that was very pointed, thoughtful in your sermon was about, what it looks like or what part of one of his schemes, his methods, right? The devil. You talked about how one of his hopes is that you won't think about it, that you're not going to notice it, right? And so when you do notice it, then okay, that changes the dynamic of who I'm against.
Yeah.
But if you don't notice his presence, then, well, who are you against?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. So if as Christians we could all capitalize on that and not be against other people, like especially our Christian brothers and sisters, like not fighting against one another, but finding that common ground in Christ and, mutually going, we're on the same team. Like, no, the devil is the enemy who's already been defeated. Thank you, Jesus. Stand firm in Jesus. Like, let him fight on your behalf and claim the victory on your behalf. Like, I don't know. I just get a lot of strength out of Christ's strength.
Yeah. And this, even thinking like in relational, a sphere. So like for me to think about my wife, Molly, and us together. But then if, all of a sudden there is some, I don't know, issues going on, some hostility, something that happened that's kind of pulling us or pitting us against each other. What I wanted, like my natural inclination is going to be to kind of double down on whatever my side is. And think of all the reasons why, this is why it's wrong, or, this is why I'm right in this scenario. But if I can think about Satan's involvement in this, all of a sudden, okay, this changes. It's not Molly versus me. It's not me versus Molly. It's us versus Satan.
Yeah.
And saying like, wait, okay, all right, here's some goofiness that's going on. Here's how I contributed. And then to say, like you said, Satan, darn you.
Yeah.
You can't do that to me.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Get behind me, Satan.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
You're bound.
Yeah.
And that just changes that dynamic completely. Then I can actually, be reunited with Molly. We can come together. And just, I don't know. That's a totally different dynamic than.
Well, the devil divides.
Right.
The devil divides. Sin separates. The devil divides. Jesus reconciles through forgiveness and love. Like, so if there's division, that's the devil at work, If there's the desire to heal and reconcile and forgive, that's of Jesus. Like, I think to be able to call that out and go, oh, yeah, I see what's going on here. Yeah.
And to think back to the whole idea of the spiritual realm, and people might be like, well, I don't know. I don't really think I've ever seen the spiritual realm or like felt it. But if you just think about division, never mind. It's everywhere.
Right.
It's not hard to see the spiritual battles that are taking place because if there's division, the devil's behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm kind of cued in.
Right. And especially when you, in my sermon, I went through that game plan of the devil that has the ultimate goal of the devil is to separate us from God. What I really did is I didn't say it specifically, but I just took us back to the Garden of Eden, because we see that what the devil does right there and what happens. And it's that, first of all, a separation from God, sowing seeds of doubt. And then separation from other people. Adam and Eve start pointing fingers at each other, blaming each other. They're ashamed of themselves, and so they blame the other. Like, boom, separation. They're everything that they've been created to do in the world, from the man's desire or a creation to work, is now painful, and the woman's to be a wife and a mother and a supporter and helper is now painful. And so all those things just boom, you just hate it all, and and end up like just the whole thing unraveling. And so that's really what the devil's trying to do in all of our lives all the time. Separate us from God, separate us from people, get us to hate one another, get us to hate the world, get us to hate ourselves, feel alone, isolated, pinned in a corner, alone, either despairing or getting selfish and prideful. And it's just like, oh, okay. I'd rather stay with Jesus and stand firm in him, put on his armor, stay with Christian brothers and sisters and find victory and peace there. I just think that's such a better way to live in the world. Yeah.
Well, I thought that too. I was going to ask, where did you get this tape, from Satan of his work and kind of what he does? And you've told us now, kind of from that garden, that Genesis story, but that actually does help just using thinking in those two directions, vertically, horizontally, like me and God, me and other people. That actually really helps me identify for myself, like, okay, what is it that's taking me away from God?
Yeah.
What is it that's like occupying my headspace and actually like making me afraid or doubtful? Like what is that thing for me? Okay, now that's the spiritual realm.
Yep.
This is the spiritual warfare that's going on.
Yep.
Like I may not have thought of it in that way, but now I can think, okay, yeah, like I've been so preoccupied by this thing. I've kind of, I come to Sunday and all of a sudden I remember, oh yeah, like, God's got it.
Yeah.
Like, he's king,
Yeah.
So what was it that was really like just taking my mind space away from God's reign over this world and over me? Okay, that's where Satan's trying to attack me.
Yeah.
And then that idea from the horizontal perspective, like again, division. Okay, Molly and I, right? Now I can see that from this whole different perspective of Satan's involvement.
Yeah.
But who else maybe in my life am I feeling distant from? And maybe it's something I did, or maybe it's something someone else did.
Mm-hmm.
But if if I can sense that space and that division, and some of the things that go with that, like hostility or fear of like even talking right to like a certain person, all right, this is more than just like some weird happenstance of life. This is a spiritual battle that I'm engaged in.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Okay, so now run me through, what do I do? If I find myself recognizing these things, recognizing maybe things that are getting in between me and God, or things that are getting me in between me and other people, or even specific people who I feel distant from, like what does it look like to put on the armor of God? We talk about put on the armor of God, but like,
first of all, I think Satan is crafty. So, what he will want to do is first to get you to think he's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then if you acknowledge that he's real, what he will want to get you to do then is still the same tactic, still pull you away from God. So what he might do is then burden you with your sin. So if you turn and say, Satan, I see what you're doing, and he might go, yeah, but look and see what you've done, miserable sinner, and then that's just another method of his. So first of all, I just want to proclaim to you, Kevin, to anybody listening, that Christ has already won. Satan does not have power. Yes, it sometimes seems like it, but the war is over. Christ is victorious. He has won. Sometimes we get wondering then, well, why does Christ still allow the devil to do all this stuff? That's beyond what I can understand, but I do know that Satan has not won. You are loved by God. You are forgiven. Jesus has welcomed you into his family, and he will love you with an unstoppable, never giving up kind of love. So I tell you that first because Satan will want to burden you, with your sin. So don't be burdened. Jesus says, if you're feeling burdened, do what with those burdens? Cast it on him, and he will give you rest. So find rest in Jesus, find peace in him, find strength in him. That's most important. Like just be in his presence. This is what it says to, put on the armor of God. What is it? Be strong in the Lord. Like you actually are in him. At our church, we say we're alive in Christ, right? Psalm 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, right? So that's like safe harbor language. So if you're a ship seeking safe harbor, where do you go? You go in the harbor, right? So like we're actually in Christ. Like, and so I think if we can find our life and just imagine him enveloping us, like that's the most important thing. And Paul just says, put him on and stand firm there. Because it's, I don't know, it's like being bubble boy or something. Like the devil just can't get you.
Yeah.
He can't get, not ultimately. Like he'll try. And you'll want to get out of the bubble sometimes and go play with the devil. Like we just, that's how temptation works. He's only got authority or power over us when we give it to him.
And that was something that was pretty big. That's a big statement, right?
Yeah.
Because like I think most of the time I'm thinking, oh shoot, I'm weak. I'm soft. I can't handle this guy, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, like Satan's power, like just the idea of Satan, he seems so much stronger.
Yeah.
Formidable. But then you call him a toddler, right? In the sermon, and kind of this guy that only has power if you give it to him. And I guess having Lily, that makes sense, right? So
I know, and I have kids. Yeah, sometimes you just like you give in just to get it over with.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like she'll say like go away. She's like playing with her toys, go away, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, like I can go away and let her play. That's fine, but I don't ever need to feel like I have to. Yeah. Like I can walk over there very easily.
Yeah.
Like she only has that power if I let her have it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I normally think that way about Satan, that he only has power if I let him have power. That's just an interesting way to conceive of it all. That we're actually maybe stronger in the Lord or in Christ. And I guess that's the key, right?
Yep. Not on our own. See, and that's a tricky thing of the devil. Like if he gets you to think that you're on your own, I can't handle the devil,
Yeah.
Well, you can't on your own. That's why Christ did it for you.
Yeah.
And so it's stay in him, stay close to him. Use his word, not your own. And Satan, he can't do anything.
Yeah. And that's another way I think that this makes sense. Like, talk about Christ already having defeated Satan, like he is the one that reigns. It sounds like, Jesus gets the last word.
Yeah.
Right? Like Satan's got all these words he's trying to throw at you, but he doesn't get the last word.
Right.
Like Jesus gets that last word, which is what you already said, salvation, forgiveness, my love for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, all of this is interesting to me, especially thinking about the names we use for the evil one, right?
Okay.
So devil, right, means deceiver, right?
Yeah.
So, that seems like what he's trying to do. He's trying to deceive you into thinking that, God's far away, deceive you into thinking that he's not there, the devil's not there, it's all these other humans, and they're who you got to be ticked off at, right?
Right.
But then if you kind of catch on to that method, well, then it's that other name we use, right? Satan, which means accuser.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so like then you'll switch into that mode, and it's like, yeah, but what about all this junk you've done, Kevin?
Right.
So now he's accusing me, and that can just as easily make me feel far from God.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, it's just interesting. We use these names for the evil one, but they actually are kind of like his methods. Like we remember that. Now I know. Okay. If I'm feeling all these accusations against me, I need to stop listening to the one accusing me.
Yeah.
And listen to the one who died for me.
Yeah, and who's redeemed you from that pit, and calls you his child, right? And so, I've heard, I always just want to be careful of like, I feel, well, okay, so I think I even heard people coming out of church tell me like, wow, I've never actually heard that much preached about the devil and really appreciated it, which is one is good so that we call him out, but two, like there's always like a hesitancy, or I don't know what the right word is, but we don't want to talk about the devil too much to actually start like legitimizing him, like making it seem like he's an actual threat. So like I want to try to be clear about that the only reason that we're showing you this tape is just so you're aware, Because again, the devil wants you to think that he's not real. And a lot of people in our society, I think, are just living life numbed out, busied by the stresses of this life, and just kind of, I don't know, just getting through, like, just
nose to the grindstone. Like, I'm not really looking around because I just got so many things I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and all these forces at play around us in the society. It's just too much to handle, too much noise. Like, I just, I think that's what a lot of people are feeling. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this stuff, And so a lot of people just kind of get back into, I don't know. And I don't know, I'm not even going so far as to say like they're being self-centered or selfish, but I think just not being attuned to what the devil is trying to do in it all, and what Christ has purchased and won you from, so that you can be in the world regardless of what's happening in the world, and stand up and say, why are we so worried about any of this stuff? Like, why is any of this like a threat to us? Like, again, it goes back to some of the stuff we've talked about in former episodes. Like, we need to be in the world, we need to be present, and we're not talking about being disengaged, but being engaged in a way where we've got the perspective of God's eternal plan for us and for the world.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually, that brings me to another thought, kind of a question that emerged in listening to the sermon is, so fight language. Like, you hear a lot of fight language out there. Fight the pandemic, fight.
Did that resonate with you or not?
It made me think.
Okay.
And this is why I kind of want to give space to it. I'm curious, like, because it seems like in certain contexts, like we talk a lot about, maybe use the language of like battling cancer, right? So we use that like war kind of language in certain scenarios. Is there a difference between that idea and this fight idea in the language that you were kind of describing? Or, what is it about this fight language in the world that you see as and you even said it, like, I don't, you were saying, I don't see the devil behind every single thing that's going on, but maybe there's a connection there, right? Like, help us understand.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and didn't listen to the sermon, I just said, like, if you listen to the language of the world often talks about fighting things. I think, at least in my mind, this is what I hear, or at least the tone behind it. Like, we gotta fight the opposing political party. We gotta defeat them, right? We gotta win. We gotta fight against the pandemic. We gotta fight against inequality. We gotta fight against pollution. We gotta fight against all these things. So, what I'm sensing is that, again, it's not a disengagement from those things. Wholeheartedly, we want to stand up for the marginalized and care for the creation and do all these things, but in perspective of, again, who God is and who we are, that ultimately God's got things in control. I'm put here to manage and steward my life and those around me and his good gifts. And so ultimately, basically the distinction is, I think people want to fight for the sake of the fight. Like, win, in a political season, win against the opponent to win the election, to gain power and control. When, maybe instead, if you're voting based on your values and that sort of stuff, like, no, our goal is not to defeat other people, not to fight against them, but prayerfully, hopefully, the values that God has instilled in this world will be the ones that kind of rule our day and our lives. Like, that's what I want to happen, Same thing with any of these issues. We want life and we want health, I don't know. I just,
That's helpful. That's helpful because, like, you're saying it's not like these issues in and of themselves are like evil things or anything like that. No. Or like bad causes to take up when we're thinking about like racial injustice or pollution, but more that we want to keep like first things first. Yeah. Like a matter of priority. And part of that is, well, one, like you said, knowing God's place in it all,
Yeah.
which is above it
Yeah.
and in control of it all. But then also, too, like being aware that these are spiritual battlegrounds, too.
Yeah.
And so, like, there can be a good cause that I can, like voting. I can go and use my vote in a way that will actually please God because I'm trying to help his ways be established in this world.
Yep.
Or I can do the very same thing and go and vote, and even vote in the same way, like for the same causes, but do it in a way that doesn't please God.
Right.
By just kind of having an attitude of, I want victory and forget you guys.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yep. And my will be done over you, and
Well, in this, like today, I'm just realizing too, like you're thinking of a fight language and how that gets used. There's also that idea of how we get so defensive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when you care a lot about something and someone disagrees with you, sees things a different way, it can be really easy for you to get defensive.
Yeah.
And usually that doesn't look pretty. It looks kind of
right. Well, that's like in my like watching of the world and in this observation, like, oh, man, I really loathe like going in like a social media comments thread, and I hate to have that always be the easy whipping boy, but that's an easy target to go. If people aren't listening to one another, if you're the opposition, I say something, you get defensive, boom, fire back, conversation over. And I feel like I see it in the media all over the place. Like, I just want somebody. I really just wish somebody would stop and say, I'm listening to you. Like, I hear you. Tell me more. Like, say more about that. Like, I'd love to understand your perspective more.
Yeah. Even though I disagree.
Yeah. But instead it's the tone just gets raised another level. You go, you didn't say that, I didn't say it. You said that, and you just fire back, and it's like, oh my man, just
give it a rest.
Yeah. I don't know. And I just feel like that's the tone and the tenor in our society right now for a lot of things, like in the media world, in my regular relationships with people, well, it's not so much. Like, regular people like actually doing
talking
this and
yeah.
talking,
Sure. But I will say, like, in those relationships that you engage in very, very frequently, i.e. wife, kids, that kind. Sometimes, well, like just that defensive idea, I got to be aware of myself. Like, if I start to feel defensive, whose armor am I putting on?
Right.
Am I putting on God's armor? Is that how? No, I'm not. I'm putting on my own armor, right? I'm trying to be defensive about how I feel, and that's just helping me think through. Okay, if I start to feel defensive, time to call out what's going on.
Yep.
Remember whose side I am on.
Yep.
And draw those lines against the devil who's just trying to deceive me, to cause this chaos and disruption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. Yeah. Excellent. It's interesting. Like my wife and I, we were talking about this on Saturday night. And I was actually excited to preach this sermon. There are a lot of sermons that I preach where I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't know, it'll be good. Like, but then I don't know, like I do this, we do this a lot, and having you here, I'm doing it less, but like I've done it a lot that, some weeks it's just like, I don't know, I guess I'll just say something, but for some reason, I was excited to preach this one, which Satan was messing with my head about. So there's just all these deceptions always going on, because sometimes the sermons that I'm least prepared for and like non-excited about and think I just botched and didn't like do anything, where like people will come up to in tears and like tell me how like that was exactly the word they needed to hear and how powerful it was for them, and I'm like, I don't know like who's messing with me here, because like I can sometimes have a tendency to procrastinate, and then I'm like, God, don't give me the don't affirm like procrastination or like being ill prepared, And so I was telling my wife, like, I'm actually excited to preach this sermon. I hope, like, sometimes it's the ones that I'm excited to preach that seem to just like, and she goes, well, don't let that don't let Satan mess with your head about that, you know. And so I don't know. I'm just like kind of letting people into my own, like some of these internal battles where Satan messes with my head. And so my wife was letting me know kind of some of the stuff that happens like to her. My wife deals with migraines. And it seems like a lot of like Saturday nights, she doesn't sleep well and gets migraines like on Sundays.
Wow.
When I'm not home to help get the kids ready to go to church and all this stuff, and she feels crummy and, you know, irritable and all this stuff. And, you know, so there's been some reflection on our end too, you know, and this is where you go like, is the devil causing that to happen on a Saturday night? Like, is he that pinpointed? And I would say, well, it certainly is messing with like her like desire, like her desire to be in church and her willingness to go there and bring the kids and be in God's presence and feel well about that, you know?
Yeah.
And so you just go like, man, yeah, Satan he works in all these really crummy, like mean ways, you know? So I guess like, I'm only just sharing those two stories just so for your own awareness, again, like for those of you listening, like what are these things? What the devil is trying to do to distract me, to deceive me, to accuse me. Again, all back to the place of not giving him credibility, not legitimizing him, but to just go, oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah. Christ is victorious over you, you measly loser. You know, get behind me. Like you've already lost. Like I stand in Christ, forgiven, restored, purchased, and won back for all of eternity. Like, and I'm with an army of saints, you know, here on earth and in heaven, angel hosts, you know, thousands of angels. You know, you just go, yeah, you got nothing, you know. So, stand firm, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, it's all those promises that you just said, right? These are the very words of God, right? And that's our sword. Yeah. That's most of what Paul talks about. So defensive, right? You know, it's like, and so often we want to like, I want to do something. I want to do something.
Yeah. I want to fight it back. I want to get them, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, no, like you don't need to. Yeah. You don't need to go out chasing after him, slaying him. Like I already did that. Right. Just rest. Right. But if he gets close, you know, if he comes up on you, you got my word. Yep. You know, it's an enduring thing. Yep. Yeah.
Yep. And just think if you're free of all that accusation, you're aware of that. Think of the freedom and the things that you get to do in this world without his threats. You know, you actually get to engage in those issues of the day, your relationships and the politics and the inequalities and living for health and all this stuff. But, you know, in a much greater narrative, letting the one who's in control actually be in control. And I just find that to be so much more empowering and an enjoyable, peace-filled way to live in this world, and a strong way. Like you've just got a much greater boldness to be able to deal with the world. So yeah,
especially knowing like I'm not against all these people. Like they're my allies in this battle against these things that we don't want to be a part of our experience. Also, having the whole first things first, God's in control, his rule and reign. I get to help out. That's cool. But it's not like it's all resting on my shoulders to accomplish this. And at the end of the day, victory's won. Like Satan's already put in his place. So it's always, we're always in a position of strength. Of
always.
Power.
Forgiven. Right. Forgiven and restored. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I think there's a lot to be said about this, and perhaps we'll continue the conversation in other times and places too. But if you're listening to this, I think if you've got questions or comments or whatever, like reach out to Kevin or I, and we'd love to engage in these conversations with you as well. So that's just kind of an open invitation to our listeners. So thanks for listening, Kevin. Thanks for the good chat today, and have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Hey, you too, man.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.